Thank you, Ronald. Okay, welcome to the third IMI Fest. I'm so excited to be here with you all, both here and on YouTube, which we've never done before, and with our IMI Award winners. So I'm here to talk to them about their work. So can I have you kind of go down the line and introduce yourself and the work that you do?
I'm Joel Haver. I'm a YouTube filmmaker, and I made 12 feature-length films last year in 12 months. And IMI reached out to me, and I was like, is this a scam? But it wasn't. It was a real thing, and I'm happy it is. It's awesome to be here.
I'm Gawx. I draw and make videos about my drawings. And I'm here thanks to a video I made, not about drawings, but about an apartment I moved to and I had to decorate. So thank you for having me.
I'm Evan Ratliff, and I'm a journalist, and I make a podcast called Shell Game, which is called, the tagline is a show about things that are not what they seem. And season one, that thing was me and my voice. I made a clone of myself and of my voice, hooked it up to my phone line and attached it to a chatbot, and then unleashed it on the world, including my friends and family, with some chaotic results. So that's me.
Hello, I'm Yoe Shaw. I'm an emotional investigative journalist. And I make a podcast called Proxy, where we investigate niche emotional conundrums. A listener writes in with a case, and then I scour the world for a proxy for that listener to talk to who has relevant experience with their conundrum. That could be a researcher who studied their issue for decades. It could be someone who's lived that exact same experience and has wisdom to share. Or it could be someone who's the villain in their story, but has none of the personal baggage. And I am just so honored to be on this panel with all of you. Everyone is so talented. I was feeling very insecure after yesterday's workshop. I was like, why did I get this award? Yeah, and then the thing that I won for was I made an episode about my friend Brian Reed of S-Town fame and This American Life. He makes this awesome podcast, Question Everything, which is a show about journalism. It's a great show. And his niche emotional conundrum is that he can't stop fact-checking his mother-in-law who has dementia, who has Alzheimer's. And so I paired him up with this proxy who could help him. This woman who, her whole thing is helping families where someone in the family has dementia and helping them work through all of the emotional dynamics that come along with that.
Howdy. My name's Grady Hillhouse. I make a YouTube channel called Practical Engineering where we explore the built environment and the civil engineering that goes into it. And the reason I'm here is because of a project we did where we filmed for about a year and a half the construction of a sewage pumping station from start to finish. Thank you. It was a pretty big project, but the goal was to kind of show from start to finish how a major construction project gets built.
All right, I have a quick round of questions, and then we'll get into it a little bit deeper. So if there's one part of your work that you have to do that if you could completely outsource it, never do it again, never touch it, what would that part be?
Starting with me?
Yes.
Okay. That's such a hard question because I have such a problem delegating anything. I want to do all my own editing. I want to do all my own, even syncing the audio. I'm like, I got to do that. If I don't do the grunt work, what am I? Just some guy, some guy throwing stuff at people, So maybe just that final pass of audio cleanup where you got to get rid of the mic ruffles and you got to get rid of all the little mistakes you made because you used cheap mics. And I think that's what I would get rid of, just that final pass of audio polish that kills me. Yeah.
What about you?
Yeah, I also do everything on my own, and it's hard to find things to delegate because I feel like it's mine and I can work on it. But I really dislike setting up lights. I think lighting is a very important part of cinematography. It's maybe the most important part of it. I've tried not using lights at all, but I always keep going back to using lights and setting them up. I like having someone that helps me and also gives me ideas for the lighting, I think. But I would need to be with them all the time, which also makes it difficult. But yeah, lights, setting up lights.
Well, I work with a team on Shell Game. Our whole team is here, in fact. So they already do all the things that I don't know how to do or can't do well. Sam and Sophie are right down here. It's definitely social media, like self-promotion. Or the promotion, I don't mind doing promotion, like getting out and talking about the project, but emailing people to try to get out to talk about the project. Any kind of social media, I would very happily have it never exist in my life ever again.
So I used to work at NPR where there were lots of resources and I worked with all these talented colleagues who would handle a lot of different things. But then I went independent and now I have to do so many things. And I actually like doing a lot of it. Like I like doing I like doing all the production, all the reporting, all of that. The thing that's hard is social media and then the mixing, which is, I'm very, very grateful to have bedraggled podcast spouse Kyle. It's very convenient to be married to an engineer, it turns out, when you're starting an independent podcast. That's what I always tell people when they ask me for advice. So that's, yeah. Because I do the bare minimum in Pro Tools, and like I just want to hand it off to someone else.
I'm lucky enough to work with a team as well, so I am, I get some help doing the parts that I don't necessarily like or the parts that I'm not very good at. So I think for me, maybe the thing I would cut out is just putting my own face on camera, because that's the part that I really dread of the production process every time. Is like, okay, now I have to sit in front of this camera and talk, and I actually get help. I get someone, basically a director, to help me do it, because it's just a part that it's still, after all these years, feels so unnatural to me, and I don't know. I think if I could cut it out, I would.
You're welcome for putting you on this panel. Okay, now I have kind of the opposite question, and I know that some of you may have a hard time with this since you kind of do everything, but if there was one thing, if you could only do one thing, like you were like the owner of like kind of one core piece of your work, what is the part that you could never ever give up? And maybe the answer is everything, but maybe there is some kind of core in there.
I think for me, it's just the time spent with friends. All my work is very collaborative, and the joy of shooting a movie is the best part of the movie. Everything else is very lonely. Editing for months on end, that takes a toll on your soul. So I would just goof around with friends on camera, but then once again, it would just feel like, what am I doing? Like, I have to do some work, right? At some point. Yeah, so but if I just could goof around with my friends forever, I would, so yeah.
Interesting. I actually enjoy the editing process because I think the videos are written like 3 times. You write it when you write it, you write it when you shoot it, and like the final writing is in the editing. And I feel like in the editing you have so many possibilities. And I really enjoy like finding different ways to transform what I had in mind on my own in my computer. So I really like the editing process. Yeah.
I think it would probably be the writing, even though it's not because I love writing. I think that's just sort of what I got into journalism to do. And so if I were to give up the writing, it would sort of feel like I've lost the essence of the job that I signed up to do and love doing, even though there are times when I can't stand to sit down and do the writing. And then, I mean, for me, the like reporting and writing go together very closely. So I suppose if you made me, I would give up the reporting and then take someone else's reporting and write it up, but I would feel bad doing that, I think.
I would say the investigating. Like, I just have so many questions, and it's just so fun. It feels like you're an adventurer, and you get to, like, you have the privilege of people responding to your emails and calls, and you get their time, and you get to talk to all these researchers and everyday people, and they share their lives with you. So, like, I love reporting, and that would be really hard to give up.
I think I'm with Evan on the writing. Sometimes it feels like, for me, YouTube is just it's a way to get my writing into the world, and so I think that would be the hardest part to give up. The other thing is, a lot of my videos, I build some kind of demonstration in the garage to illustrate an engineering principle, and those are really fun to design and come up with and shoot. So I would miss that too.
Okay, so something I want to talk about with you guys is all of like the unseen work that goes into your projects, because I think like looking at or like watching or listening to your pieces, like you can tell like there's so much craftsmanship and care, but there's also just like grunt work and manual labor time and planning and strategy that goes into it. So I want to hear from all of you about that kind of like unseen labor and like the scope of taking on these like ambitious projects that you all take on. And Yoe, maybe it will bounce around. Maybe I'll start with you, since you were kind of talking about the investigation part of it. So for your podcast, you know what I really love about it is you kind of get people to like talk about the things you're not supposed to talk about and like say the kinds of things you're not supposed to say, and then you find this proxy, someone to just kind of like who like wraps their arms around them and says like, it's okay that you said that thing and feel that way, you're not the only one. What goes into finding that relationship? Because I'm sure it feels very high stakes for the person who's being vulnerable. So like, what is the process for kind of uncovering that?
First of all, thank you for saying that language. I'm gonna steal that language. I love that language. A hug. Yeah, if like a listener did say that once, like it feels like a hug. Every episode feels like a hug. Okay, so problems, people have lots of them, so that's not an issue. So like we have lots of cases, lots of good, interesting, narratively interesting cases. Finding the proxy is a magical, mysterious process, and it's always like it can take anywhere from. One of our first episodes that we did was about this listener who wrote in with his wife had divorced him after coming out as queer, and he was very happy for her, and also was very abrupt, and he had lots of questions, and he also didn't want to like force her to process it with him. And so then, in that case, it's like, who's the proxy? It could be a researcher who's studied this issue, and like we always do that. I always turn to social science and do kind of like, just like one pass looking around and emailing any researchers who I think are like in a discipline that touches the issue, and then I just like send some random emails and then get someone on the phone, and then they're my gatekeeper, and I get them to like explain the history of the work and research in that area, the different camps, who disagrees with them, and just sort of like who are the cool people. And so that's one way. We also look through memoirs, and blog posts and support groups. Sometimes I put out call outs. Sometimes it's just like friends. In this case, I already knew who the proxy would be immediately because she was my former boss. Someone who'd gone through the same experience. She had left her husband after, because she's queer and she wanted to be in a relationship with a woman. And so that was very easy. The hard part is also just like, it is high stakes. And so is it therapy? This is a question we get a lot. Is it therapy? Is it okay to do this? And so I did a bunch of reporting on that. I talked to a lot of therapists to be like, is this therapy? How is it not therapy? How can I make sure it's not therapy? How do I do this safely? And I got a bunch of advice. And so we came up with a document of like, here are kind of our principles, and it's always changing. We have an assessment for like whether someone is like up for this experiment. And then the vetting process for the proxy is like a whole thing, because they have the hardest job. You know, it's easy to talk about your problems in a way, but like the proxy has to, you know, be empathetic. They have to be able to give that hug to someone who is very, you know, yeah, they're sensitive about this thing, and a lot can go wrong. And so I give them a very, very clear task, and I set norms. I set a container at the beginning of the session, which is something I learned from therapists. And I make sure everyone knows this is not therapy. That's like the number one thing you have to say. No, everybody knows this is not therapy. And sometimes it doesn't go right. It hasn't happened much. Actually, in Brian's case, we did do one conversation with this couple who does really interesting work. They're an improv couple who has brought their improv comedian skills to caregiving for people who have dementia. And I thought they were perfect. But in the conversation with Brian, they weren't hearing him. They just weren't. They were just like, no, you just need to do this. No, like you should do that. And it's like, no, that's actually like the number one thing the proxy has to do first is I hear you. You are totally valid in how you feel, and I'm sorry. Like that needs to happen first before any solutions. And generally for researchers, their issues that they monologue with the solutions. And so I have to tell them like, ask questions. Any insight you share has to come backed up with an example from personal experience. So yeah, so a lot of stuff, basically.
Evan, I wanted to jump to you because, so Shell Game Season 1 and Season 2 just started as well, very exciting. Takes a super hot topic, AI, but kind of takes an emotional look at AI. Like your AI does go to therapy and talks to your family and your friends. And something from the show that really like stuck in my head was when you had the AI talk to one of your friends, and then he said that like ever since then, every time he talks to you, he's like, I'm not sure if it's really you, because turns out like 10% of uncertainty, if this is actually a person, is like an extremely high amount of uncertainty. But anyway, I wanted to ask you, as you thought about kind of constructing Season 1 of the show, how much actually went into like setting up the voice clone of Evan, and then also kind of how you decided to like set the boundaries. Okay, this is what we're going to explore in Season 1 versus this is what we're going to explore in Season 2 and beyond.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sort of technical architecture that is maybe unusual certainly for my journalism, but like maybe for life that I set up. So to give the very brief technical explanation, like there are these calling platforms that are basically made for telemarketing firms that they're trying to replace telemarketers with AI bots. So you can put phone numbers in there, you can attach it to any of the AI chatbot models, and then you can also choose voices for them. I had to do a little bit more elaborate setup to clone my own voice, make that voice available, also put my phone number somewhere that then got connected to the platform, but eventually I could like click a button and call anyone. I could also route it to my own phone number. The more kind of tricky thing after that was that unlike most sort of reporting experiences that I would have, the whole value, I would say, in what I was trying to do was get people to experience encountering something that wasn't real in the wild and like without expecting it. And so you really only get one chance at that, because once they figure out it's an AI, if you call them again, they're just playing to the AI or they're mad at the AI or whatever it is. So they were like surprisingly stressful setups where I would want to give it a little bit of information about who was going to talk to, but also people might just call out of the blue. So I had a whole document that had like my whole life history and all my friends, and I'd written all this up so it could access that if someone called. And sometimes it went completely off the rails, including with a friend. And they believed it was me, but they actually thought that I had some kind of mental breakdown. Other times they knew it was an AI, they figured it out really quickly and they thought it was very funny, but I didn't actually get to listen in on the calls. So the calls, I would pick them up later, they just record them. So I didn't know what was happening when it was happening. I would just go listen to this recording in my office with my headphones on and just like in like a pool of sweat, like what is going on? And then when they went awry, it was like quite upsetting to listen to. So the structure of Season 2 was sort of like dealing with outsiders a little bit, but I had more control over it. I mean, Season 1, sorry. Season 2, which is like, I'm building this company called Harumo AI, together with a bunch of AI agents that I've set up is even more sort of like they're encountering the outside world in unexpected ways. So there's more setup, there's even more elaborate technology around it that I spend all this time like fine tuning. And then there are these moments where they actually do communicate with someone where I have to wait and see if it went completely off the rails.
Gawx, I want to go kind of to something you said earlier on about how you really enjoy the editing process and how sometimes you kind of find or discover or change your mind about what the story is in the edit. And the work that you make is so incredibly crafted. I mean, I've just never honestly seen anything like it. I think it's kind of a singular vision. And so I just was, wondering what that process is like for you. It seems like it's maybe a non-linear process from start to finish. So kind of what goes into creating a video like that one?
Well, it's a bit of a mess. So I have a sort of idea of what I want to do. So in that video, it was learning interior design. So I start by writing an outline of the video that I want to make. And I write the script by chapters. So I out of the outline, I know, okay, I want to start with the intro, then I want to talk about the space. And I write each chapter, and I film each chapter, and I edit as I film. So I film the whole day, and I edit at night to see kind of if what I'm doing is working. And most of the time, it doesn't work. So I rewrite or try to re-edit. And if I re-edit and I kind of like it, I rewrite the script in order for it to fit the story. So it's a lot of back and forward between writing, editing, and filming. And I also I don't like to speak in front of the camera because there's this certain rhythm that I try to have with my videos. I see them as music videos, almost. So what I do is I write the script, I record the voiceover, and I edit that. And then when I film, I have that audio file, which I just lip sync, as if it was a song. So if the edit doesn't work, then everything else, well, if the audio doesn't work, then everything else doesn't work because the audio is already there, so I need to go and rework that. So it's just like that for like 2 months.
That's really interesting. Does anyone else think of like the idea of like the rhythm, almost like music? I'm curious if anyone else thinks of their writing and speaking in that way.
Nah.
Okay, one of one. Wow, that's really interesting. So Joel, if that's not how you think about things, I am curious though. So 12 movies in 12 months. When did you start? Did you start like January, with month 1 and go from there? Did you have it all planned out in advance? Like, what was the scope of like the full ambition of the project?
The ambition was to plan nothing because I like being surprised by my work. Like, if I start a shoot day not knowing anything, that's way more exciting to me than if I have a script and a shot list. So all my movies were fully improvised. I did not write a script all year. And what I did have in mind was the artist I wanted to collaborate with. Like some of them are here. My friend Eric and I did a stop motion movie, which was the worst idea when you're making 12 movies in 12 months to make a 2-hour stop motion epic. But like I love Eric's work. I've been a longtime fan, and I want to go to Minnesota and make a movie with Eric. And then I had friends in New York I wanted to make a movie with. So I didn't have concepts or ideas for the movies, but I had artists I love, and I raised money on Patreon to fund this whole project. So I could fly out to those artists, give them money to take a couple weeks to make a more meaningful project. Because I think collaboration online is usually limited to let's shoot a quick video for you, shoot a quick one for me while I'm in town. So giving myself the freedom to get lost in projects for weeks or months with people was a very unique experience. And that's kind of the impetus for the whole project.
Is there anyone you want to put out into the universe? Anyone that you wanted to collaborate with but haven't gotten the chance yet?
I mean, Mr. Beast, that guy, he does some good stuff, No, I don't know. I really don't know. I feel very fortunate that I have gotten to collaborate with so many people that I do admire. But like anyone really, I mean, I always love to see what happens when you smash your creativity into somebody else's and see the explosion that comes out of that. And I think Erickson was a great example of his insanity meeting my insanity and creating something very unique. And yeah, I think that's, to me, anyone is worth smashing your brain into, you know?
True, it's very true. Is it true that that movie you made with Eric is the longest American animated film ever made?
People say that, I guess.
It is on Wikipedia.
It's on Wikipedia. It's 2 hours, 20 minutes. We did not intend it to be that long. I initially had an 18-day trip planned, and we hit my flight, and I'm like, we're like halfway through this story. We really messed up. So I wound up staying an additional 12 days, and they were 14-hour days, morning to night, stop motion, animating. And we cheated a little. It's 6 FPS, you know. That's a bit of a cheat code, you know, doing it at a much lower frame rate. But nonetheless, I think it is the longest.
Yeah, well, you're cheating against those guys at like Spider-Man across the universe, into the universe, which I think is number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, Grady, last on this question. So your project, you filmed for a year and a half, but I'm imagining the project itself was much longer. And I mean, including just even getting access to that construction site, and relationships with San Antonio. Like, what actually does it take to be able to do a project like that?
Yeah, it was tough because, you know, it was quite a bit different than the stuff we normally do. But luckily, I have the good fortune of having been a civil engineer for, 10 years. And so I had a lot of connections and relationships within that industry and within Central Texas. And so, I kind of leaned on that a little bit. When we decided, let's try to shoot a construction project from start to finish. Not a huge highway project that takes decades, but something that's like a little more bite-sized. I just started reaching out to people, and the San Antonio River Authority said, hey, we got a project that's starting, this summer. Would you want to do that? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. It's perfect. And then there was all the contracts and insurance and all the stuff that you'd need, the safety training, everything you need to be on a construction site. And then there's like developing the relationships with the contractors, because it's a weird thing to like have someone filming you do your job. And so that was at times thorny, but mostly pretty smooth process. But it's something we had to be very deliberate about. And the other part was like, we didn't know it was going to happen. Like the cost associated with having someone on a construction site for a year and a half shooting every single step is just too much. And so we really had to coordinate with the contractor basically every day to say, hey, what's happening today? Are you pouring concrete? Are you doing something? Because a lot of days, it's just one electrician on site, just like, making some connections. And it doesn't make sense to send someone out there to shoot that. And so it was a coordination nightmare as well. But, it all worked out at the end.
Yeah, it's just funny to compare and contrast your and Joel's experiences, where it's like plan nothing, plan years in advance. Definitely different approaches, but then you end up with these like huge scopes of work. So that's, I think is like a really interesting just contrast. I'm curious to talk as well a little bit about your relationships with being an independent versus being at an institution, or your lack of interest at ever being at an institution. Joel, I'm curious, you seem like a very steadfast, independent creator, and you don't seem like you have any plans to change that anytime soon.
No, I don't want to change that. My latest video, or one of my latest videos, was me announcing that I turned down a streaming service who legally I can't name, and instead I am choosing to pour a bunch of money into a movie I'm gonna release for free instead. And I am so fortunate to have led a creative life where I don't have to answer to anyone. So when this streaming service came to me, as buttery as they made me. They buttered up my cheeks real good. But yeah, they could not sway me. I just love making with my friends. And even if it means making way less money, I think oftentimes we're encouraged to like escalate. YouTube's just a stepping stone. But to me, I'm like, why can't it be the last stone, and we could just make that stone pretty and decorated, and add a nice like armoire to the stone, you know, like that to me is like the ultimate goal. I'm like, I'm already doing what I love. Like when people ask me like, what's your future goals? What do you want to do with your career? I'm like, I think I'm already doing it, and that is so lucky. It's so lucky to have that confidence. And if I was currently 8 months into making a streaming service series, I know I'd want to die. So I am very fortunate to have that ability. And like the years and years of like weekly uploads and Patreon and stuff like that has given me a financial safety net where I can blow all my money on a passion project. So that's a nice thing to have as well. Yeah.
Gawx, I feel like you're another. Do you see yourself as like a true forever independent?
Yeah, I on YouTube. I don't know what I'll be doing in it. I think one of the beauty and the curse of what I do is that I don't know what I'll be doing in 2 months, or not even in 5 years. I have some sort of direction, but I don't see myself going out of being independent. I've been doing this since I was 14. I'm 22 now. So the only thing I know is being independent, and I'm happy to have the creative freedom that I do. I think that's the most valuable thing, and I think it's hard to keep that if you're not independent. So yeah, I see myself being an independent creator for a while.
Do you have any like a funny story of like a truly DIY behind the scenes like shot or thing that you were trying to do that you're like, this is so crazy, and only as a true independent, you know, could I pull off something like this?
Well, I think almost all of the cinematography that I do is DIY. I think I became known because I like to use skateboards as dollies, so I put a C-stand onto skateboards and move that around. Sometimes with a string, I attached it to a tripod into skateboards, and I pull that to use as a dolly. So stuff like that, I just try to figure out how to do stuff for no money and on my own and without help, so I can do it in my own rhythm. And I think those limitations make the videos look how they do and give the uniqueness to them.
Yoe, you shared at IMI Fest in the past kind of your experience transitioning from NPR to starting out as an independent. Now that you've arrived, you're making season 2 of Proxy. How does it feel? What's it been like for you?
Well, originally, so I got laid off from NPR in 2023, and originally I wasn't planning on being independent. I actually came up with the idea for the show, and I pitched it to all these production companies, podcast production companies, and I got some okay deals, but they all wanted intellectual property. And I was just like, I will never put myself in the same situation again, where some suit can just decide, even if the show is doing well and has a huge audience, we're just changing strategy. So that was very important to me. Obviously, the money and resources would have been nice. And then I realized that was a summer of pitching, and then by that fall of 2023, some of the people I had pitched had gotten laid off. And then by the next year, one of the companies that I was negotiating with and had offered me a deal folded and was no longer in existence, like that division. And so in the beginning, it felt like a curse, sort of. Like, I'm like, oh, I'm the underdog, like this is never gonna work, I'm never gonna make money, I'm never gonna be able to do this sustainably. But now I feel like it is the most secure thing that I can do. And that says a lot about the sad state of journalism at the moment, that like I feel more secure than my friends at huge institutions that have steady paychecks and benefits, but they're always worried about when the shoe is gonna drop, when the next round of layoffs are coming. And then turns out I love being independent. I love not having anyone to say no to me. I love not having to like do creativity by consensus. I feel like when I was at NPR, at Invisibilia, like I was kind of bored. I was like, I have so many more story ideas. I have so many questions. I'm fast. Like, let me make this, this, and this, and this. And usually the answer would be no, even to like ideas that I thought were good. And so now it just feels really good to be like, yeah, like my ideas are good, and like I can do it. And my editor, Tim Howard, you know, I'm lucky to have an editor, he's amazing, who likes to play and has that yes and energy, which is very important to me.
Grady, when Yoe was talking about feeling like actually more secure as an independent than at an institution, you were nodding a lot. I'm curious about that nod.
No, I have found a lot of value in having control, or editorial control and intellectual control over what we do. And that doesn't mean like we never partner with outside organizations, but we're all, you know, when we do, we're always very explicit about what say they have versus what say they don't have. And it just feels nice to have that control.
And Evan, what about you? I know you've had many stages of your career, so how do you feel about where you've landed currently?
I mean, I love it. I feel like in journalism, it's like, I guess I self-identify more as a freelancer than as an independent. Like it's a little bit of a different flavor in journalism, where I have worked with institutions my whole career. Like I was a magazine writer, I am a magazine writer, I pitch stories, they assign the stories, I have to deal with editors at all levels giving me notes. And then when you work in the podcast world, like it's basically the larger budget you get for anything, the more notes you get from the more people that you don't even know who they are or why they're involved in the project, you know? There's just a note will show up from a name you've never heard of. So what I've tried to do over the years is sort of find the gaps where I want to do something and the institutions either find it too risky, or they just don't seem interested in it, or they don't think it's lucrative enough, and then get together with friends and start that thing. And so this is kind of a version of that. Like I had a lot of frustrations with working with a big podcast outfit and, you know, doing a show with them and the processes of that and how they took my ownership and then I couldn't get it back and things like that. So it feels really, really good to work with people that you care about on a project that you know you control, and you know that you can get the outcome that you want, you can get it out in the world. But then after that, season 2, we have a partner, because once you do that, I feel like then you're in the position to go to possible partners and say, well, here's what I want. Here's the conditions under which I would do that. One of which is like, I want to know who's going to give me notes. Oh, it's you? Okay, great. Like, that's fantastic. You really know what you're doing. So I feel like I'm happy to go in and out, but it's the risk tolerance for me that's kind of like the biggest thing.
Do any of you guys have questions for each other now that you've heard each other talk?
Well, I'm sorry. I want to ask you how, like I'm currently working on a short film and the writing process. I cannot imagine it working, how I would do it without a script. Yeah. So you arrive on set and you have no idea what's gonna happen. How do you start discovering that?
So I think no idea is a bit giving me too much credit. I know who's gonna be in the scene. I know, once you start the story, you know there is a story, you know, like, so it's like Lego piecing a movie together. It's like, oh, we filmed the first scene and we filmed the ending, now we just need to make an arc, you know, and you're sort of like taking a step back after each day and seeing that arc and seeing that grander story, and you're like, we need to fill in a gap here and here, and just like, you know, pull from your knowledge of like tropes and like cinematic cliches. You know, like we have such a storytelling like language built into our brains that we're like, this is the character's low point, this is their high point, how do I get there, from there to there in a compelling, unique way that isn't too derivative? And I think, yeah, it is probably as improv as like a feature film can be, but like, at this point, I've made so many of them that I have a confidence going into each day. Whether it is a day where we're just throwing shit at the wall or a day where we already got all the best shit on the wall and we're just looking at it, I guess. Yeah.
I have a question. For the YouTubers on the panel, I don't know if you listen to narrative, like audio-only podcasts. Do you?
I do.
You do? Do you?
I should, because I animate a lot, and I'm always dying to find something interesting to listen to while I animate.
Oh,
so,
okay,
yeah.
okay. Well, I guess I have like a medium to medium question. Like, you know, YouTube is a different, video is a different medium than what we do as audio makers. And like, do you have any like, you're like, oh, I wish podcasters would do this more. Or like, oh, if only podcasters would stop talking like in that voice. Or, you know, because like one of my favorite narrative podcasters is a comedian and someone who does like acting and films and is on YouTube, Jamie Loftus. I love her work. And what I recognize when I listen to her work is like, oh, she's editing. The sound design has a YouTube quick edit quality. There's like the air horns, and then there's a random thing going on here, and then like it's the humor, and she has like a steady drip of jokes along the way, which I notice with my YouTube friends is very common in the videos. Yeah, any thoughts for us?
I was gonna say more air horns.
Definitely more air horns.
No, I think just that YouTube energy, like I often will turn on a YouTube video as opposed to a podcast when I'm working. And I think there's a personableness to like how people will often present themselves on YouTube. And it's just different strokes for different folks. But like, you know, the podcast voice that you mentioned, it makes me feel like I'm learning a bit, and that scares me sometimes. So YouTube, it just feels like I'm hanging out with a friend. But I don't think change what you're doing for like, that for some guy like me, you know, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm the exact opposite. I want the podcast learning voice. That's why I go to podcasts instead of YouTube videos.
Yeah, I honestly haven't, like I grew up with YouTube, so I'm used to just watching YouTube. I had never really got into podcasts. Sometimes I put on YouTube videos and just hear them. It's weird, but I've never, yeah, maybe, I don't know. I think just if you do something that feels true to you, I think the appeal, if someone in the video side discovers it, it's gonna connect.
Our podcasts are on YouTube. You can just go click, just pretend like there's a video.
Do you edit in the air horns?
That'll be done tomorrow.
I'm gonna send you my episodes and check if I am doing the voice. Like, I want to see if I can pass the test of being personable enough.
Okay, well, I want to thank you guys all so much for doing this, and congratulations, this year's IMI Award winners. All right, that's all of our time. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.